She was only his maid, but on the night the billionaire nearly died, she was willing to lose everything just to save him.
For 5 years, she loved him in silence, never asking for his heart, only praying he would always come home alive.
He spent years searching for happiness, never realizing the woman who loved him most had been standing just outside his door all along.
Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you convinced yourself they would be happier if they never knew? Imagine giving someone your heart every single day, expecting nothing in return, only to discover that losing you is the very thing that teaches them what love truly is. This is the unforgettable story of a humble maid, a lonely billionaire, and one life-changing night that proved love isn't measured by wealth, but by sacrifice. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if you enjoy heartwarming stories with unforgettable endings, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's begin. Everyone who knew Nathaniel Brooks believed he was the luckiest man alive. At just 38 years old, Nathaniel had built one of the largest real estate companies in America. His name appeared in business magazines. Television hosts called him one of the country's most eligible bachelors. Luxury cars filled his garage. His mansion overlooked the sparkling waters outside Seattle, and every room inside reflected success, elegance, and power. But the silence inside that enormous home was impossible to ignore. When the meetings ended, the investors went home, and the lights in the city faded into the night. Nathaniel always returned to an empty house. No family waited for him. No one asked how his day had gone. No one reminded him to slow down or take care of himself. The world admired his success, but no one seemed to notice the loneliness that followed him everywhere. Perhaps that was why he buried himself in work. If he stayed busy enough, maybe he wouldn't have to think about everything his money could never buy. 5 years earlier, another life had quietly crossed his path. Her name was Hannah Collins. She wasn't famous. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't connected to powerful people. She was simply a hardworking young woman who had accepted a housekeeping position after losing both of her parents within the same year. With no family left to lean on, Hannah carried her grief quietly and chose dignity over self-pity. She worked wherever honest work could be found, believing that God always opened another door, even after life closed one. When she arrived at the Brooks estate for her interview, she wore her only neatly pressed dress and carried a folder containing references from previous employers. She expected another ordinary interview. Instead, she found herself standing before a man who looked nothing like the ruthless billionaire newspapers described. Nathaniel greeted every employee politely. He thanked people who served him. He remembered birthdays. He paid generous wages. He quietly covered medical bills whenever one of his employees faced a family emergency, asking only that no one tell the media. Hannah noticed those little things almost immediately. Kindness is difficult to fake. She saw it in the way he spoke. She saw it in the respect he gave everyone around him. Without realizing it, admiration slowly settled into her heart. She never planned to fall in love. In fact, she fought against it. Every morning, she reminded herself that they lived in completely different worlds. He was the billionaire whose schedule was planned months in advance. She was the maid who dusted bookshelves before sunrise. He attended charity galas. She quietly polished the marble floors after everyone had gone home. There was no future where someone like him would ever look twice at someone like her. So she buried her feelings beneath professionalism. Every smile she gave him stayed respectful. Every conversation remained brief. Every heartbeat she hid behind quiet composure. She told herself it would pass. But feelings don't disappear simply because they're impossible. Instead, they grew stronger. Over the years, Hannah learned everything about Nathaniel without ever invading his privacy. She knew he skipped breakfast whenever business became stressful. She knew he drank black coffee while reading financial reports before sunrise. She noticed he stared out the library windows whenever the anniversary of his mother's passing came around. She quietly placed fresh flowers in the room that week every year without mentioning why. Nathaniel never asked who did it. He simply appreciated that someone remembered. Some evenings he worked so late he forgot to eat dinner. Without interrupting him, Hannah would leave a warm meal outside his office with a handwritten note that simply read, "Please don't forget to take care of yourself." Nathaniel assumed one of the kitchen staff had started leaving the notes. He smiled every time he found one. He had no idea they always came from Hannah. To her, loving him never meant expecting anything in return. It meant praying for him before going to bed. It meant thanking God whenever he returned home safely after business trips. It meant celebrating his successes from the background where no one noticed her. Sometimes real love asks for nothing except the happiness of the other person. Hannah understood that better than anyone. Meanwhile, Nathaniel remained completely unaware. He respected Hannah. He trusted her. He often complimented her dedication to the household staff. Whenever new employees arrived, he pointed to Hannah as an example of honesty and integrity. "You can always count on Hannah," he would say. "She's one of the reasons this home feels like a home." Those words meant everything to her. Yet they also reminded her exactly where she stood. To him, she was dependable, kind, professional, nothing more. She accepted that reality with quiet grace. Or at least she tried to. Then, one ordinary afternoon, everything began to change. Nathaniel received devastating news. A massive business deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars suddenly collapsed after one of his closest business partners betrayed him. Within hours, reporters crowded outside his headquarters. Investors demanded answers. News channels questioned whether his empire was beginning to crumble. For the first time in years, Nathaniel looked completely defeated. Late that evening, he walked into the mansion looking exhausted. He loosened his tie, dropped his briefcase near the entrance, and stood motionless in the hallway. The weight of the world rested on his shoulders. From the kitchen doorway, Hannah saw the pain on his face. She wanted nothing more than to tell him everything would be okay. She wanted to remind him that his worth wasn't measured by stock prices or business contracts. She wanted to comfort the man she had silently loved for 5 years. But she couldn't. Instead, she quietly prepared his favorite homemade chicken soup, placed it outside his office door with another handwritten note, and walked away before he could see her. That night, Nathaniel opened the door, picked up the tray, and unfolded the small note. It read, "Even the longest storms eventually run out of rain. Don't lose hope." For reasons he couldn't explain, those simple words touched his heart more deeply than any speech from his executives or friends ever had. He looked down the empty hallway, wondering for the first time, who keeps leaving these notes? He didn't know it yet, but the answer to that question was about to change both of their lives forever. Nathaniel stood in the quiet hallway long after reading the note. Even the longest storms eventually run out of rain. Don't lose hope. The words lingered in his mind. They weren't written by someone trying to impress him. They felt sincere, personal. They sounded like they came from someone who genuinely cared whether he made it through the night. For the first time in years, the billionaire found himself wondering about something that had nothing to do with business. Who had been leaving the notes? The next morning, he asked the head chef if the kitchen staff had been placing meals outside his office. The chef looked surprised. "No, sir." Nathaniel frowned. "What about the housekeeper?" She shook her head as well. One by one, every employee denied knowing anything about the mysterious notes. Nathaniel didn't push the matter any further, but his curiosity only grew stronger. Meanwhile, Hannah listened from a distance. Her heart raced. She had never intended for him to find out. The notes were never meant to earn his attention. They were simply her quiet way of caring for the man she loved. That evening, she almost decided to stop leaving them altogether. But when she noticed Nathaniel skipping dinner again, she couldn't ignore it. She prepared a simple meal, placed it outside his office as always, and slipped another handwritten note beneath the tray. No success is worth sacrificing your health. The people who truly care about you would rather have your smile than your achievements. She walked away before he opened the door. A few moments later, Nathaniel stepped into the hallway. Again, another meal, another note. He smiled without realizing it. For the first time in weeks, he actually sat down and finished every bite. Whoever this person was, they somehow knew exactly what he needed to hear. Over the following days, something inside Nathaniel began to change. He still worked hard, but he no longer rushed through every meal. He started greeting the staff more often. He even laughed during breakfast one morning, something no one in the mansion had witnessed in months. The employees noticed. So did Hannah. Watching him smile filled her heart with a joy she couldn't explain. She didn't need him to know she was responsible. Seeing him happy was enough. Or so she kept telling herself. One Saturday afternoon, the mansion hosted a charity fundraiser. Business leaders, politicians, celebrities, and journalists filled the estate. Hannah and the household staff worked tirelessly to make everything perfect. As she carried fresh flowers into the ballroom, she overheard a conversation that stopped her in her tracks. Mr. Brooks would make the perfect husband, one elegantly dressed guest said with a laugh. I heard he's finally considering settling down. Another woman smiled confidently. If he does, it certainly won't be with someone ordinary. The women laughed as they walked away. Hannah forced herself to keep smiling, but every word pierced her heart. Of course they were right. A billionaire would marry someone from his own world. Someone wealthy, someone influential, someone whose name appeared beside his in magazines. Not the maid who quietly made his bed every morning. That night, Hannah knelt beside her bed and whispered a prayer. Lord, thank you for allowing me to love someone so wonderful. Even if he never loves me back, please bless him with someone who will treasure him. A tear rolled down her cheek. It wasn't bitterness. It was surrender. The following week brought unexpected news. Nathaniel announced that he would be attending an important charity gala in downtown Seattle. Several influential investors would be there, and the event would continue late into the evening. Before leaving, he walked through the foyer where Hannah was arranging fresh lilies. He paused. Hannah. She looked up, surprised. Yes, sir. I've noticed these flowers are always fresh. She smiled politely. I know they're your mother's favorite. Nathaniel blinked. They were. For a brief moment, silence filled the room. Then he smiled softly. Thank you. It was only 2 simple words, but Hannah carried them in her heart for the rest of the day. As Nathaniel drove away that evening, dark clouds gathered across the sky. Rain began falling harder with every passing mile. The roads became slick. Visibility faded. Inside the mansion, Hannah couldn't shake the uneasy feeling growing in her heart. She glanced toward the windows again and again. The storm was becoming dangerous. She quietly whispered another prayer. Please bring him home safely. Hours passed. The clock struck 10, then 11. Still no sign of Nathaniel. Just after midnight, the mansion's telephone rang. The sound echoed through the silent house. Everyone froze. The estate manager answered. His face turned pale. What? The receiver nearly slipped from his hand. The staff gathered around him. What happened? Someone asked. He looked at them with trembling eyes. Mr. Brooks was involved in a serious car accident. Hannah felt the world stop spinning. The flowers slipped from her hands and scattered across the marble floor. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Without thinking, she grabbed her coat and rushed toward the front door. Hannah, the estate manager called after her. The hospital is almost 40 minutes away in this weather. But she was already running into the pouring rain. Nothing else mattered. Not the storm. Not the darkness. Not the distance. The only thought filling her mind was one desperate prayer. Please, God, don't let me lose him before he ever knows how deeply he's been loved. Little did Hannah know, by the time she reached the hospital, fate would place her in a situation that would force her to reveal the secret she had hidden for 5 long years. And once Nathaniel finally learned the truth, Neither of their lives would ever be the same again. Rain hammered against the hospital windows as Hannah pushed through the emergency room doors, soaked from head to toe and struggling to catch her breath. "Please," she begged the receptionist, "I'm here for Nathaniel Brooks." The nurse looked up immediately. "The accident victim?" Hannah nodded, unable to speak. "He's alive, but he's still being treated." The words "he's alive" were enough to make her knees weak with relief. She quietly thanked God before taking a seat outside the emergency ward. Every second felt like an hour. Doctors and nurses rushed past her. Families cried. Phones rang without stopping. Yet Hannah noticed none of it. She kept praying, "Lord, if someone has to carry this pain, let it be me. Just let him live." Nearly an hour later, a doctor stepped into the waiting area. "Mr. Brooks is stable. He suffered several injuries, but he's expected to recover." Hannah closed her eyes as tears streamed down her face. For the first time that night, she smiled. Nathaniel was going to live. She turned to leave, believing there was nothing more she could do. Then she heard shouting. One of the nurses came running down the hallway. "The blood bank is critically low. We need donors immediately." Without hesitation, Hannah stepped forward. "Test me." Within minutes, doctors discovered that Hannah's blood type matched Nathaniel's. She didn't think twice. "If my blood can help save him," she said, "take whatever you need." As the transfusion began, Hannah felt weaker by the minute, but her heart was filled with peace. She wasn't thinking about herself. She was simply grateful she could finally do something to protect the man she loved. Hours later, Nathaniel slowly opened his eyes. Everything around him was blurry. Machines beeped softly beside his bed. The doctor noticed he was awake. "Welcome back, Mr. Brooks." Nathaniel swallowed painfully. "What happened?" "You were in a serious accident. You're very fortunate. Someone's quick decision helped stabilize you." He frowned. "Who?" The doctor smiled gently. "A young woman from your household. Hannah Collins." Nathaniel stared at him. "Hannah. She arrived here in the middle of the storm, donated blood without a second thought, and never once asked for recognition." Nathaniel's heart tightened. He had always known Hannah as dependable, but this was something entirely different. As the next 2 days passed, Nathaniel couldn't stop thinking about her. He asked the nurses about her. They told him she had remained in the hospital until sunrise before quietly leaving for work because she didn't want the household to fall behind. He couldn't understand it. Why would someone care that much? On the third morning, Nathaniel was finally strong enough to walk slowly through the hospital corridors with assistance. As he rounded a corner, he noticed someone sitting alone in the chapel. It was Hannah. She hadn't seen him. She was kneeling with her head bowed. Nathaniel quietly stopped outside the doorway. Then he heard her whisper, "Thank you, Lord, for sparing his life. Please help him recover completely. He has so many people depending on him. And if it's your will, let him one day find someone who loves him enough to make him forget this painful season." Nathaniel's eyes filled with tears. She wasn't praying for herself. She was praying for him. Even now, even after risking everything, he stepped into the chapel. "Hannah." She quickly stood, startled. "Mr. Brooks, you shouldn't be walking yet." Instead of answering, Nathaniel looked at her with eyes full of questions. "Why?" She tried to smile. "What do you mean? Why would you do all this for me?" She lowered her eyes. "You didn't have to donate blood. You didn't have to run through a storm. You didn't have to stay here all night." Her hands trembled. "I couldn't lose you." The words escaped before she could stop them. Silence filled the chapel. Hannah knew there was no hiding anymore. She took a slow breath. "For 5 years, I've loved you." Tears welled in her eyes. "I never expected anything from you. I knew we lived in different worlds. I knew you probably saw me as nothing more than your maid." She wiped away a tear. "That's why I never said anything. The meals outside your office. The notes. The flowers every year in memory of your mother. It was always me. I only wanted you to know that someone cared. I thought that would be enough." Nathaniel felt as though every moment of the past 5 years suddenly fit together. The mysterious notes, the warm meals, the kindness that had surrounded him without asking for recognition. It had always been Hannah, the woman he had overlooked because she was quietly standing beside him instead of demanding his attention. He stepped closer. "Hannah." She shook her head gently. "You don't have to say anything. I know you don't feel the same." She turned to leave. Before she could take another step, Nathaniel reached for her hand. She looked back. His voice broke with emotion. "You're wrong. I didn't recognize what I was feeling because I spent so many years chasing success. I thought love had to arrive with fireworks. But every time I felt at peace, you were there. Every time I found hope, it came through your words. Every time this house felt like a home, it was because of you." Tears rolled down his face. "I almost lost the one person who has loved me more honestly than anyone else ever could. I don't want another day without you. I don't want another success if I can't share it with you. Hannah, I love you." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Hannah began to cry. Not quiet tears. The kind of tears that come after years of silent prayers are finally answered. Nathaniel gently wrapped his arms around her. Neither of them cared that they were standing in a hospital chapel. They had both found the miracle they never expected. 6 months later, the Brooks estate looked very different. Laughter echoed through its halls. The lonely mansion had become a home. Nathaniel no longer worked through every meal. Every evening, he made time for dinner with Hannah. The woman who had once quietly served the house now stood beside him as his beloved wife and equal partner. When reporters asked Nathaniel what the greatest investment of his life had been, they expected him to mention a billion-dollar company. Instead, he smiled. "The greatest blessing in my life wasn't something I bought. It was someone who loved me when I had nothing to offer except a tired heart. Because in the end, money can build a mansion, but only genuine love can make it a home. And sometimes, the person God has chosen for you isn't the one the world admires. It's the one who has been quietly praying for you all along." If this story touched your heart, remember that true love is often found in the quiet acts of kindness we overlook every day. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what part of Hannah and Nathaniel's journey moved you the most. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who believes that love, faith, and kindness still exist. We'll see you in the next story.